Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to the Islamic Literary Society. Alhamdulillah, I see many faces and most of them are new, alhamdulillah. Bit about the society. It was founded in 2019 to promote, to reconnect, rejuvenate and rediscover the glory of Islamic literature. And especially the youth and the younger generation to the tradition of reading and the experience of reading. As we all know, in a society that we're living in, reading is something that is not very favorable to the mass. So the society intends to introduce Islamic literature, both classic as well as modern, so that we can rediscover what almost lost in terms of reading skills and appreciation for literature. Now, the society does this in a number of ways. It publishes book reviews, it has book launches, it does interview with scholars and academics. This particular one is called Influential, the Life and the Works of Influential Muslim, to highlight or to bring those scholars and those thinkers in the last 100 years that made some contribution to the Muslims and how they counter-argued some of the ideas and thinking that was penetrating into the Muslim mindset. So this particular program comes under the series Influential Muslim, and we're going to, inshallah, Dr. Imtiyaz is going to talk about Raji Ismail Raji Al-Faruqi. Most of you, as I say, know Professor Imtiyaz, so he needs little introduction, but those who may not. He's an associated professor and a coordinator for the Islamization of Knowledge and also Islam and Buddhism program at the International Institution of Islamic Thought and Civilization in Malaysia. Dr. Yusuf is currently a non-resident or research professor fellow at the Center for Contemporary Islamic World at USA and a former senior at the Prince Walid Ibn Talal Center Muslim and Christian Understanding, Georgetown University. He is also a former director of the Center for Buddhist and Muslim Understanding in the College of Religious Study at you may have to help me with the university name, Dr.
Mahidol University
in Thailand. He is specialized in the study of religion with a focus on Muslim Buddhist relationship and dialogue, Islam in Thailand. And so Dr. Yusuf's most recent publication, Muslim as a Thailand's largest religious minority, Handbook of Islam in South Asia, edited by Sayyid Muhammad Khairuddin. I welcome you to our lesson, your time, and I think this, inshallah, this program will be very beneficial. So I'll hand it to you, Professor.
Thank you very much, Brother Abdul Hai. Thank you for inviting me. Let me start sharing my screen. Then I will proceed. Okay. Thank you very much to my Brother Abdul Hai. Brother Abdul Hai. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to begin this presentation. First, I'll change this into slideshow, if I can. Okay. The topic is Ismail Raji Al-Faruqi, Life and Work. And Inna Allaha malaikatu saluna ala nabi ya ayyuhallazina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. I want to thank the Islamic Literary Society, especially Brother Abdul Hai, who is very passionate and dedicated to the work of Islam and knowledge, and he is devoted and is promoting knowledge and information about classical and contemporary Islamic literature, as he mentioned. I've come to know him over last 2-3 months, and we have been working together, and it has been a pleasure to work with him. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتٌ بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. and reckon not those who are killed in Allah's way as dead, or and think not of those who are killed in Allah's way as dead. No, they are alive and are provided sustenance from their Lord. I'm saying this, I'm reading this ayat especially for Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi and his wife, Professor Louis Lamia Al-Faruqi, were murdered, and we were there, and when we were as his student. So I'll come to that in as I go further. So Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi was a Palestinian Islamic scholar, writer, and an activist. He was the governor of Jalili, or from 1945 to 1948, and professor of Islamics, as he called Islamic Studies, at the Temple University. And I'll come more into that. His work offers a comprehensive vision of Islam and its relationship to the different aspects of life. Islam as a religion of reason, science, progress, and work ethic. And he combined the affirmation of Tawheed with modernist interpretation and application through modern life, through the exercise of intellectual jihad. I use the word jihad because when I did a book on him, the fashrif on him, which is this one, Islam and Knowledge, and I had put him as a mujtahid, and Professor John Esposito changed the title and said, no, he is a mujahid. So this book is a fashrif in honor of Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi. I was glad that I could produce this work, and it was published in 2012, and 26 years after his death. I always felt that there are so many fashrifs in honor of living and passed away professors, but there was no one in the honor of Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi. So in 2010 and 11, when I was a visiting fellow at Georgetown University, I talked with Professor John Esposito that I want to produce this kind of a fashrif in honor of Faruqi, because I was thinking that no such work has been produced. And he said, I have no time. I said, I have all the time. So he said, go ahead and do it. And Alhamdulillah, it was published by IB Tauris. I have several other works. I'll first show some of the slides, and then I'll go to my main presentation. The second work, when I was in the US 2010 and 2011, I had the permission from the IIIT to access the whole library of Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi, all the papers, all the letters, all the correspondences which he has left behind. And while digging among them, one day I found one manuscript, and I said, this manuscript has not been published. And so I inquired from some of professors who had worked with Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi, like Professor Frederick Matheson, Frederick Denny, and he said no such book has been published, because the Professor Faruqi had published one book on Islam as an introduction. So I was able to compile this book, and it came out with the title Islam, Religion, Practice, Culture, and World Order, and it was published in 2012 as well. So if you look at the contents of the book, it is a general introduction. The part one is about who is a Muslim, what is a Muslim. Part two is about the moments in Muslims' religious life, or the pillars of Islam. Part three is about Muslim celebrations. Part four is the Muslim family. Part five is about the Muslim worker. And part six is on the Islamic worldview, world order. And the last is Islamic culture and history. I'll not go into this. And then at the same time, in 2011, when I was at Georgetown, the American Journal of Islamic Social Sciences asked me and Professor John Esposito to do a special issue on Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi. So volume 28, summer of 2011, number 3 is a special issue a commemoration on the life and works of Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi. It is available online and you can access papers in it. The articles in there are written by Professor John Wall, Professor Muhammad Najatullah Siddiqui, Kamal Hassan, Professor Ibrahim Zain, who was my colleague of mine at Temple University, along with Dr. Ghulam Nabi Fai, who is joined with us here. An article by Professor Muhammad Aslam Hanif from Malaysia, Professor Charles Fletcher from McGill, and Zaki Kiramani. So, and then recently in 2021, I again I've been working on Faruqi. Somebody has said to me, when I was in Indonesia, that nobody is working on Faruqi except you in the world. I said, no, there are many people working, but maybe I am doing more. So I published this book, which is a collection of the essential writings of Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi. It is titled Essential Writings, Ismail Al-Faruqi. It was published by the Center for Islam in Contemporary World at Shenandoah University and Islamic Book Trust in Malaysia. So these are, let me stop sharing my screen here and go directly to my presentation. So having said all that as an introduction, let me go back a little bit and talk about the Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi's biography. He was born in 1921 from a religious influential family in Palestine, and he obtained his bachelor's degree from the American University of Beirut in 1942. After finishing his studies, he was appointed as a registrar for the cooperative societies under the British Mandate government in Palestine, in Jerusalem. And in 1945, he was appointed as the district governor of Jalili in Palestine, which I mentioned before. With the creation of Israel in 1948, Professor Faruqi left Palestine and he migrated to Beirut for a short while, and then he went to the United States. When he went to the United States, he was jobless. He had no job. And as Brother Fai knows here, he was working as a building contractor who was renovating old houses, doing the painting and renovation of all the houses. And this was how he was earning as his income. Meanwhile, he was to become so much interested in scholarship, so much interested in scholarship. I please mute your microphone so that I don't get stopped in the middle. I request everyone to mute their microphones. Okay, so continuing here, when he was in the United States, he enrolled in Indiana University in 1949 and obtained a master's degree in philosophy. In 1951, he earned a second degree in philosophy from Harvard University, and he did his PhD in 1952 from Indiana University on the titles Justifying the Good, Metaphysics and Epistemology of Value. Having completed Western education and in American University of Beirut and the American universities, after that he went for 4 years to study in Egypt at Al-Azhar University to gain further knowledge of the traditional understanding of Islam. So from 1954 to 58. In 1959 to 61, he was a visiting professor at Institute of Islamic Studies at McGill in Montreal, where he studied Christianity and Judaism at the faculty of McGill. And it is there he met Professor Fazlur Rahman from Pakistan, who was teaching there. May I request people to please mute the microphone?
Mute them.
I get disturbed. Okay, let me continue. He met Professor Fazlur Rahman, the famous scholar from Pakistan, at McGill University, and they became friends. And they used to discuss about the revival of knowledge in the Islamic world, and they had kind of shared mission of understanding. And shortly after that, both of them were invited by Professor Ishtiaq Hussain Qureshi, a famous Pakistani historian, to come and to work as professors at the Central Institute of Islamic Research in Karachi, Pakistan. So from Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi and Fazlur Rahman, Professor Fazlur Rahman went to Pakistan, and he stayed there for 3 years, from 1961 to 63. But he was upset there, and it is mentioned in my book, Islam and Knowledge. He was upset by seeing the laziness, and he said the people here are only drinking chai and are not engaging in hard work for the revival, for the reform, for the Brother Muhammad Siddiqui, please mute your microphone.
Yeah, you're the host. You can mute him.
Okay.
Host to mute everybody.
Okay, I mute him. All right. Okay.
Please,
thank you. Sorry for this disturbances. So he went to Pakistan, and he was upset with seeing the state of interest in knowledge, but he did made curriculums and taught their courses in Islamic studies, in Near Eastern studies, and Islamic thought and all. And I have those curriculums with me. They are so comprehensive. They are so comprehensive in his approach of teaching Islam and Islamic studies. After that, in 1968, in 64, he went back to the United States, and he was appointed as Professor of Islamic Studies at Syracuse University. Meanwhile, he stayed there till 68, when a new department of religion was formed, established at the Temple University, Department of Religion. Now, I'm using the word religion in the generic sense of the term, not religious studies. It is not theology. A program where they would teach all religions, and it was founded by Professor Bernard Phillips, whose intention was that, whose goal was that, whose intention was that the professors who would teach at this department would come from that particular tradition. So Judaism would be taught by a Jewish professor, Christianity would be taught by a Christian professor, Islam by a Muslim professor, Buddhism by a Buddhist professor. It was the first kind of a program which was started in the United States, and then several other programs were established after that. I went to study there after, in 1984, with Professor Faruqi. Dr. Said Faye was there before me, and fortunately, I was his last student assistant, and I will talk about that later, until he passed away. The other important thing, besides being a professor, he also engaged in establishing the first Islamic studies group at the American Academy of Religion, and he was the chair. He was a chair for 10 years, and he was also the vice president of the Interreligious Peace Colloquium and Muslim Jewish Christian Conference and also in the United States. And he was also the president of the American Islamic College in Chicago. So he is very well known for his book or his project of Islamization of knowledge. But before going to talk about that, let me talk a little bit more about his view of Islam. He was, as a scholar and an activist, as described by John Esposito, he studied the contribution of Islam to the world of knowledge and global civilization. And he approached his emphasis on Tawheed, and he was critical of Sufism as the reason for stagnation and corruption in the Middle Ages. He was captivated by Islamic rationalism, of Monotheism, of the works of Qadi Abdul Jabbar, Ikhwan al-Safa, and Tawhidi theology of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, a very interesting kind of a mix, an Islamic modernist, a rationalist, and at the same time, who was very much attracted by the thought of Salafism, of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Now, in his view, uh, he, 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 he has an Arabian worldview of Tawheed. Now, when I use the word Arabian worldview of Tawheed, we used to contest a lot, discuss a lot with that. It is not a nationalistic understanding of Tawheed. Uh, for him, as a historian of religion and as a phenomenologist of religion, he is the only one Muslim scholar in the modern age, after Al-Biruni and Shahrastani, after a long time, who engage is in phenomenology of religion. And he was very much impressed with the work of Al-Biruni, Shahrastani, and several other Muslim comparativists of the Middle Ages. So for him, in his view of history of religion, monotheism is the greatest gift of the Arabs to the world of religion. And the word Arab and Arabia, it does not restrict, does not mean, and does not have an ethnic or a racial meaning here. It is the word is Uruba, and it does not refers to Arab nationalism, but it looks at the Arab theater, Arabian theater, from Mesopotamia to Egypt, from Mesopotamia and Arabia, Central Arabia, South Arabia, and North Arabia as the theater of monotheism. So this is when in his view of Uruba and religion, or Uruba and Deen, he has a monotheistic view of Arabism, and which is not very well understood by Muslims and those also who work on Tawheed from non-Arabian perspective. I would like to share something like he is looking at Tawheed as it was experienced by the biblical prophets and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as from the perspective of the desert life. So geography plays a very important role in the formation of religious worldview. And I would describe that his view of Tawheed would be what Fazlur Rahman called as moralistic monotheism. And Faruqi stressed on Tawheed and Adl, and as a Adl justice, because as a displaced Palestinian, he had undergone the trials of being a displaced person and the creation of the state of Israel. So he also, when he talks about Uruba or Arab worldview of religion, and he says that contemporary Muslim scholarship unfortunately starts only from Prophet Muhammad's lifetime and onwards until today. It does not look into pre-Hijrah Islam. He introduced this word pre-Hijrah Islam, and which should be the source of understanding Tawheed and its expression in the field of art, aesthetics, and religious experience, culture, and human dignity. Now, the project of Islamization of knowledge was founded in 1980. Was a movement which began in 1970s because there was crisis in Muslim education. I myself, as a young person at that time, was very much. We were all studying Western sciences, Western theories, Western philosophies, a Western approach to knowledge. We studied Aristotle and Marx and whatever you have. But we and many young generation of that time saw the crisis of Muslim education, which was that all universities were imitating the models which were coming from California or from the United States. And this crisis of education was impacting young people of what is this place of Islam in the world of knowledge? Is Islam just a religion of rituals? I would, I would just to share myself, my experience with you. I would go to the bookshop, and I go go to the library, and the first thing I would do is open the index and look for the name for in the index for a subject Islam, and I never found it. And this was a crisis which was felt by many scholars and also by the younger generation of that time. So that movement began, that kind of quest led to the founding of the epistemology of Islamization of knowledge as a subject, which has become as a subject of inquiry and Muslim scholarship. Now, just interjecting a little bit here, who is the founder of Islamization of knowledge? There are several, but Faruqi played a very important role in laying the ground, the work plan, the ground plan of what Islamization of knowledge is. I want to say here a little bit. Uh, Professor Syed Naqib al-Attas, who was a friend of Professor Ismail al-Faruqi, has in his book Islam and Secularism claimed that Professor Faruqi stole that view from him, that approach of Islamization of knowledge from him. But interestingly, just last week, I was watching a YouTube discussion at American University of Beirut between Professor Sari Hanafi and a professor from Ibn Khaldun University in Turkey. And Professor Sari Hanafi is a sociologist, and he says, in his view, for the first time, and it was surprising, he said Ismail al-Faruqi is the founder of Islamization of knowledge, and it was distorted by Sayyid Naqib al-Attas. Now, this is a shocking thing to people like me, and Professor Barkut is here, our dean, to listen to this view. And I'm still thinking, why did Professor Sari Hanafi say made this comment? Because he saw, as a sociologist, he's a young scholar. He sees the approach of Faruqi as being really grounded in Islamization of knowledge, or what is the role of knowledge, contribution of Islam to the world of knowledge, epistemology, ontology, and everything else. Now, anyway, going back, this led to the founding of the first Makkah Education Conference in 1977, and there was the Makkah Conference of Education in 1977. That led to the formation of international Islamic universities in Pakistan and in Malaysia, and now we have in Bangladesh, in Nigeria, and Uganda. And I don't need to go into much detail about that. Now, let me come here and talk a little bit about what is the Islamic worldview, according to Professor Ismail al-Faruqi. It is made up of three segments or three ideas, or for the first one, in his view, Islam is an ideational, axiological, and aesthetic worldview. First, ideational, that it in the sense that it highlights the centrality of Tawheed, monotheism, as the core idea of Arab consciousness in contrast to other civilization. In other words, he's saying the concept of Tawheed could only emerge in the geography of Arabia and not in geography of any other world. And he has works on religion and geography. I will come to that in a minute. The second part of this Islamic worldview is axiological, means the valuational adherence to Islam. That is, its faithfulness to values of the monotheistic piety, values drawn, ethics drawn, morality drawn from Islamic monotheism. It is not national, racial, or ideological. So it is an axiological understanding of monotheism. The third part, which is very, very important, and it's also seen in the work by Professor Ismail al-Faruqi and his wife, is that it is aesthetical. The Islamic worldview is an expression, has an aesthetical expression of Tawheed. The Quranic revelation is the source of the Arabic language, as well as a source of aesthetic expressions infused with monotheistic consciousness, as it expresses itself in the arts of the Muslim world, in the art, in the calligraphy, in the art, in the architecture, and all the music and painting. So he comes up with, as we can try to imagine, that he comes up with this new understanding of Islam, which is, as I said, ideational, axiological, and aesthetical. So for Professor Faruqi, the theological, moral, and the aesthetic dimension of Muslim life and thought and action are infused with monotheistic consciousness, which stresses, which is based on the concept of duality between the creator and the creature, between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the insan or human being. Let me go further, and having said this, is the view of monotheistic consciousness based on duality. Okay, so, and this is the basis of Islamization of knowledge program, and he led the work plan for that. Today, people are not talking of Islamization of knowledge, or there's a lot of semantics and semiotics of the word Islamization. I don't know, so many discussions going on. But what is happening, and now Islamization of knowledge has also moved to another stage, is called integration of knowledge. Now, this word integration of knowledge, I am a disciple of Ismail Faruqi, so my views are very, very, very much entrenched in Faruqi's view. The integration of knowledge is the term which comes from Ziauddin Sardar. And in the book Desperately Seeking Paradise, Ziauddin Sardar and Professor Faruqi were never in agreement. Ziauddin Sardar himself quotes or says in the book Desperately Seeking Paradise, he said one day in the morning when they were having a conference, Professor Faruqi came down and he said to Ziauddin Sardar, "You want us to reinvent the wheel?" That means Islamization of knowledge does not mean beginning from the scratch. It does not mean that beginning from a scratch or beginning anew, because Islam's approach to knowledge has never been that. Muslim scientists, Muslim philosophers, Muslim artists, whatever you have, they have taken from previous civilizations and developed on it. To put it in an example for you, like Professor Faruqi would say that, yes, today the Airbus, the wheel of the Airbus, the latest Airbus version or the Boeing jet is really so advanced that if you are engaging it, if you are a scientist of making wheels, what would you do? You will try to improve upon what is already invented, what is already developed. For what? Not for commercial purpose only, but for the welfare of humanity and for the contribution to knowledge. Today we are all in this pandemic. Why is this pandemic of COVID-19 going on? Unfortunately, today there's a sad news of Professor Azumardi Azra, who passed away of COVID. He came to Malaysia for a conference, and when the plane was landing, he was breathless. He was taken to hospital, and he passed away this afternoon. So the pandemic, the climate change, the Pakistani flood, and the earthquakes and the wars, all these are the causes of humans' transgression, of not playing the role of stewardship or as Khalifa on the earth. So Faruqi is saying, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to make the thing, those who are coming out of, or the products of Islamization of knowledge, to contribute to the world of knowledge, going ahead from what is already available and making it like how to overcome the pandemic, how to overcome the climate change crisis. You just watch on TV, the whole planet is in crisis. Many governments make pledges that we will reduce emissions, but they are continuing to destroy the environment and all. Okay, the third part where I'm going to talk about is his contribution to the history of religions, or phenomenology of religion. Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi was the only scholar, apart from two other scholars of his time, Sayyid Hussein Nasr and Fazlur Rahman, who I distinguish from them. Professor Faruqi was a historian of religion. He was a phenomenologist of religion, while Nasr was in studying Sufism and Iranian mysticism of Mullah Sadra and all. And Professor Fazlur Rahman was engaging in Islamic thought, or Fikr al-Islami. So Faruqi What's uniqueness about Faruqi? It is his contribution to history of religion and phenomenology of religion. And the work for him, cultural geography. Geography and religion are interrelated. So the first book he produces with David Soffer at Syracuse University is very interestingly titled The Historical Atlas of Religions of the World. It's a masterpiece in which he discusses, every scholar from every religion is given a chapter to contribute. Going over time a little bit, brother, brother Abdullah, you can tell me when to stop.
Fine, we've got some time. It's fine.
Okay, all right. So he emphasizes on the culture, the role of geography and religion, and the last book which he and his wife produced and which was published posthumously is called The Cultural Atlas of Islam. So why is history of religion important for him? He sees, as I said before, that he sees Islam monotheism as the contribution of Arab consciousness, and he says the Islamic world, the monotheistic worldview. I'm not using the word Islam now, is monotheic, and it comprises this monotheic worldview of monotheism is comprised of three streams of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and they are and religion based on that these three streams have their own view of universalism, tolerance, and life affirmation. He contrasts this with the mythopoeic religious worldview, which is shirk. Now, see, when I'm talking about Tawheed and shirk, I say, as I understand Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi as a student and sitting in classes on Quran and Near Eastern studies with him, he contrasted between Tawheed and shirk, but he would not expand the concept of shirk to Hinduism, to Buddhism, to other religions, or Confucianism or Taoism. He would see, and as I understand, people can correct me, he sees shirk, Tawheed and shirk as the two competing religious worldview which took place and are taking place in Arabia. So that's why all the prophets, the biblical prophets and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are the proponents of Tawheed, of monotheism. That's why he emphasizes on studying of pre-Hijrah Islam. So in a way, to put it very simply here, he is kind of a new Al-Biruni, a new historian of religion, who is trained as a philosopher as well as in the traditional sciences, and makes contribution in the field of critical engagement and critical study of religion in the place of history, including Islam in human history. So he is, in my view, the new Al-Biruni of the modern age. It is very interesting. He was very close with Professor Wilfred Cantwell Smith, and once we had a conference where Wilfred Cantwell Smith, Hans Kung had come to Temple University, and Professor, being very close with Wilfred Cantwell Smith, who was the famous scholar of Islam and Christianity. In that lecture, if Brother Fay remembers, he called Professor Wilfred Cantwell Smith as the Al-Biruni of Christianity, or Al-Biruni of Islam, a Christian Al-Biruni of Islam. Let me say it this way, the Christian Al-Biruni of Islam, because Professor Wilfred Cantwell Smith knew Islam in and out, just like Al-Biruni knew Hinduism in and out from Sanskrit and the basis of Sanskrit. Okay, the fourth part in which he engaged is interreligious dialogue. Now, he was engaging in this interreligious dialogue from 1960s, and interreligious dialogue is an important program at Temple University. At that time, it was not fashionable. The word interreligious dialogue was not fashionable at all. It was something very new to us too. So he was already engaging in that, and he was engaging with Christian, Jewish, Hindus, and Buddhists, and uh, and he for him he there's a he engaged in several conferences on Christian, Muslim, Jewish dialogue, and he emphasized on the concept of Din al-Fitra as religio naturalis as an essential part of human existence, of being human. And he was there's a dialogue going on between Kenneth Craig, the Christian scholar of Christian theology, and where Faruqi, where Kenneth Craig asked Faruqi, so is there a Din al-Fitra concept in Buddhism? Is Buddhism, can you say the Buddha was a prophet? And Professor Faruqi said, why not? Why not? We have to do research on it and study it and see how the concept of the Din al-Fitra, or Buddha nature, or religio naturalis exists in Buddhism or in Confucianism or in Taoism. And this is the task of Muslim scholars, of Muslim researchers. And there was heavy criticism on Faruqi. So Professor Faruqi says, and I'm quoting him, he says, I cannot say for sure, but it can be researched, because there are rudiments of prophecy to be found in every religion, whether it is the traditional religion of Africa or Asian religions, or so that means going beyond the religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Now, he had also seen, since he was engaging in Islam Christian dialogue, Professor Faruqi one day remarked in the class by saying that his best work is not Islamization of knowledge. He said, my best work is Christian ethics, the book titled Christian Ethics, which is a must read if anybody is interested. And in that, he looks at the Christian fathers before Islam. And he does not give up Uruba. He is looking Uruba as a monotheistic worldview. And he says the Christian-Muslim dialogue has several problems. And unless these problems are addressed, we cannot go ahead. He was not happy with Vatican II's Nostra Aetate statement. And it is in Vatican II, Council of Vatican II, which in 1960s produced the Nostra Aetate document, where the first time the Catholic Church recognizes other religions. But Professor Faruqi says it is not enough. That document is not enough for dialogue. Many people get excited about Nostra Aetate because there are good statements made about Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, and other religions. He says because it does not include us, the others, the non-Catholic, in the plan of salvation of Catholicism. So it is not enough. So where should dialogue begin? He says Muslim-Christian dialogue should begin with the Creed of Nicaea on the issue of, on the concept of Tawheed and Christology from that time onwards. And if Christian-Muslim dialogue starts with the Nicene Creed, it can be more productive. I'm going to end here my comments. I've taken a little or more than 8 minutes more. Professor Faruqi, unfortunately, he and his wife were murdered in 1986 during the month of Ramadan. And let me tell you something very interesting. I was his last student assistant, and many times he would call me, and say, he would call me in the morning and say 6 o'clock after Fajr and say, are you awake? I said, I would be sleeping. I would say, yes, I'm awake. I'm awake, I'm up. I say, okay, prepare this or prepare that and bring those things to the office. Now, in 1986, I was going for the summer vacation to Thailand. And one day, suddenly, he called me and he said to me, Imtiyaz, you're going to home, you're going to Thailand. So have a nice journey, safe journey, and we'll see you when you come back. He has never called me before. Whenever I went for summer vacation to Thailand. And after I reached Thailand, I received a call from Brother Muhammad Siddiqui, who is here, saying that Professor Faruqi passed away, was murdered. And I said, suddenly, wow, he has never, that was a sign from, or an indication that it was saying farewell to you or goodbye to you. And he has never called me before. And that was the time that when he called me and said, well, have a nice journey and holidays and come back and we'll meet together. And it was suddenly untimely death, and it was really shocking. And a great scholar who has made great contribution and could have made further contribution had he lived would have been great until today. Let me end up by saying that Professor Faruqi presented Islam as a worldview, as an integral part of knowledge process, without engaging in apologetics. He was not interested in apologetics. He said, never apologize. For example, when I wrote a paper, he said, why are you quoting ayats of the Quran, Quranic ayats? You are trying to hide behind the ayats of the Quran. Say what you want to say, and then give a reference to the Quran ayat you are referring to. You know, we say ayat of the Quran or we say hadith, but basically we feel not so confident of saying what we want to say as researchers, as scholars. So he was engaging in developing new theories about Uruba and religion. Uruba, I mean monotheism here, Arab monotheism, in the religious stream of which is non-nationalistic. And this stream is made up of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And he was also making a contribution to the field of the comparative religion and Islamic theory of aesthetics, rooted again in monotheism. And my last comment here is that Islamization of knowledge is also one of his last greatest contribution to the world of knowledge, and which continues. And it is so interesting today that from 1986 until today is more than 30 so years, and still we have people around the world who are interested in the work of Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi and want to see its continuation. And I thank Brother Abdul Hai and Islamic Literary Society for inviting me to give this presentation. Thank you very much.
Jazakumullah, Ustad Imtiyaz. Your presentation has certainly been beneficial and to those who have attended, and also our listeners will inshallah benefit. Firstly, I say rahimahullah to Raji Al-Faruqi for his contribution. May Allah give him Jannat al-Firdaus, make him an example for those who comes after him. There are a number of questions that people have written. So and answer them, and the people are also free to ask the Professor Imtiyaz directly. I think that would be more fruitful. If I may start with I mean, I have a number of questions, but I won't say all of them. Give others the opportunity. First, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned Professor Faruqi as someone who's combining kind of the Mu'tazila philosophy as well as Ibn Wahhab, and it's a very difficult task because Abdul Jabbar and others, Ibn Abu Du'ad and people like them are kind of completely opposite. My question to you is, was he trying to, you mentioned he's not trying to change the usul of the religion, so he's working on it. By trying to combine the both, Ibn Abdul Wahhab by his Kitab al-Tawheed and Qadi Abdul Jabbar, is he not in somewhat trying to change the usul? That's my first question. And I'll mention all of them so you can answer as you like. And I only mention two so that others have the chance. The second question is, what does Faruqi mean after 30 odd years? What does Faruqi mean for a young Muslim studying university in London or in Malaysia or in Bangladesh or wherever they may be? What does it mean? And what does that young Muslim living in the West, in the world that we are in now, confused, disastrous in many ways, ideologically as well as what can Professor Faruqi offer that young man who's going to university and an identity crisis. That's my two questions. I got so many, but I'll give others, inshallah, to ask them. Barakallah fi.
Yeah. You asked a tough question actually about his interest in Mu'tazili rationalism and Salafism of Abdul Wahab. I have struggled with this question a lot to try to understand him. And I have come to a conclusion that he was integrated. He was not interested in drawing the lines, saying that Mu'tazila is wrong or Ash'arism is wrong or Salafism is wrong. So he looks at the integrated worldview, integrated approaches to Tawheed. And he struggles with himself, and he was able to manage, and he was able to manage that dilemma. And that's what we can learn from him. What we can learn from him is that we should not draw lines from across different theological approaches. For example, you cannot just stick with Ibn Taymiyyah or Ibn Khathir or just the Mu'tazila, but try to integrate it. And that is what Islamization of knowledge is all about. Because all of them are parts of Islam. All these trends are the parts of Islamic worldview and Islamic theology or Islamic understanding of the Quran. So, and he was able to fashion it in a way that he did not compromise on rationalism, he did not compromise on Salafism, but was able to offer a new approach, which takes me to your second question, that what approach he is offering, an approach that Islamic, we have to understand, we have to study Islam as a world civilization and its contributions from the time of pre-Hijrah until contemporary times, and look at the crisis of education, which Professor Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman also talked about. But Faruqi is more philosophical on this, because he sees there is a crisis of education, crisis in the field of knowledge, which is based on materialism, capitalism, Marxism, which are still around. You see, like formerly, the capitalists destroyed the whole climate change, and now the Chinese are saying it is our chance. So, as a Muslim, how can we contribute to the world of knowledge, not just by criticizing materialism or Marxism or postmodernism or whatever you have, but trying to contribute new approaches to the world of knowledge. And for that, we have to be all comprehensive and integrative. So this is the challenge for the younger generation, who are the part of, whether they are living in the United States, the UK, or in Malaysia, or where else. I see Shahzani here, my student. The question is, how can contemporary, postmodern, we see, because Muslims, the Muslim world in general, is modern by the accident of colonialism. We are modern by the accident of colonialism. We have to overcome this accident intellectually, epistemologically, and most important, ontologically. Our life is divided. Our epistemology and our ontology are different. Actually, we are living in the age of ontology of violence. And this ontology of violence, you may call it materialism or whatever, has to be tackled with, and come up with a new contributions. But this is a challenge for the younger generation to look at it, that how can we offer an alternative worldview, an alternative approach to knowledge, and not also contribute, just like everybody else is. We have to make our mark. And this requires very, very hard work. Professor Dr. Five, I know Professor Faruqi was so hard on us, really so hard. He said, you have only three things to do: read, research, and write. And without this hard work, unfortunately, we are living in the age of disruption, the great disruption, or what Fukuyama calls the great disruption, or post-human future, or post-human future. And this has created even more compounded problem of approaching to knowledge. So the younger generation has to really gear up to addressing this issue. I think I'll stop here. Brother Hai, you want to ask questions, or you want me to look at them and answer myself?
if you have a look at them, you'll be much easier, I think. And then you.
Okay, yeah. I'll go to the question by Brother Nuruddin. He says, I think Sardar sees science in terms of pragmatism, where what is important is how science can benefit humanity. Well, Faruqi, not only from framework of pragmatism, but also metaphysics. Yeah, I could agree with you on that. Uh, and can you elaborate? Uh, Also metaphysics, where the foundation of modern natural science is problematic, needs to be reconstructed based on Tawheed. Hope you can. Yeah, Tawheed is for him, for Faruqi, Tawheed is the source of knowledge. For him, uh, Islam is a religion in which knowledge triumphs. Islam emphasizes on ilm, not as religious sciences only, but ilm in general. And if you have that kind of approach taken by the scientists, the natural scientists, the social scientists, and or even those who are in humanities, that would be the contribution of reconstruction of knowledge in the Islamic world. Why did the question comes is what caused Faruqi to discontinue his work on Uruba? Yeah, he had planned. We wanted to publish 5 volumes, but uh, he produced only the first book, Uruba and Religion. Uh, I think, and then came the Makkah conference, and then because of the acuteness of the crisis of education in the Muslim world, it made him migrate into the field of Islamization of knowledge. But mind you, he never gave up the view of Uruba. So the word, his book Uruba and Religion is also a very important reading. If we want to continue to see his continuation, the Uruba continues. The project of Uruba continues with him as a phenomenologist of religion, as a historian of religion, where I just mentioned that he sees the three approach, the 3 streams of Tawheed, of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Can you explain further the concept of meta-religion? Yeah, this is very interesting. Professor Faruqi used the term meta-religion, and it's a tough one. Meta-religion is religion above religion, if I use the word. Deen above deen. Means it is what I would say as wahadat deen. I'm taking the concept here of wahadat deen and differences of Sharia. So he is rising above our normative, our cultural, our not normative, our cultural, our whatever understanding of religions is, which is based on ethnicity or race. Whether you're a Jewish, Christian, or a Muslim, or a Buddhist, or because today we identify religions on the basis of race and ethnicity. We are in the age of religious nationalism. We are seeing what is going on, that religious nationalism is the new form of fascism which has taken place. So he is emphasizing on looking on deen, or deen, I'm using deen as a religious worldview, above the parochial understanding or provincializing religious practices of religious teachings. So that's why that is what his concept of Uruba, of meta religion is: religion above religion, and before religion. Uh, 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 the word religion has also problematics here, because the word religion, as was coined by which is being used today, is mostly from the 19th century or 19th century Orientalists. I'm not referring to the religion in that sense of the term. Does Faruqi have any particular views on Sayyid Hussain Nasser? No, he did not. Faruqi never criticized Sayyid Hussain Nasser. He saw Nasser doing his work in the field of Persian contribution to Sufism and work, but limited to Mullah Sadra and Illumined Ishraqi school. So that is his views. In fact, they were friends. We would see them, embracing each other, hugging each other, but their approaches were different. As I said also already, that Nasser focuses on the Persian contribution, for Professor Fazlur Rahman focuses on Islamic thought, and they are the three pioneers, very important pioneers in the modern age, who addressed the study, address the issue of Islamic worldview through different angles. Without them, without these three people, we would not be discussing what things we are discussing today. We have gone far ahead from the time, but they were the pioneers in this field. So he does not have any particular views on Syed Hussein Nasser. He sees that he is doing his own work in his way. Malik bin Nabi and his work. Okay, I think there's but okay. If anyone wishes to, okay. I think these are all the only questions I see. If anyone else wants, they can ask. They can take them. They can raise their hand and ask questions.
If I can take a few minutes of your time, I just got one question. I think this is a vital one in understanding Faruqi in contemporary world. He obviously, there was a call for him to combine Salafi understanding as well as somewhat a rational worldview. What was his relationship with Faizur Rahman? Because Faizur Rahman was a modernist to my reading of him was a modernist to kind of other extreme. What was his relationship with him? And I know you mentioned a bit about it. If you can kind of expand on it, and as well as Sardar, who has certain views within that not only affects the life of a Muslim from a fiqh point of view, but in terms of the usul, he wants to introduce certain ideas and accept certain kind of way of life that contradicts basic Islamic understanding. So what was
who introduces?
Sardar, I think his name is Sardar. You mentioned
Sardar.
Sardar, sorry, yes. He
Zadin
has certain.
Sardar.
Yes, he has a. Yes.
Oh.
So what I'm asking is that how does the Faruqi looks at them, and how does he combine them, knowing that one is on the other side?
Okay, yeah, with Fazlur Rahman, he has a very good relationship. As I said to you, as I said before, that they were working together, and at McGill University and also in Karachi. But when they went back to the United States, it's very interesting, that both of them could not live in Pakistan, where they were invited to contribute to the development of Islamization of knowledge project. But when they went back, and then there were differences of opinion between them, and the differences of opinion is based on Fazlur Rahman looking at Faruqi as an Arab. As the concept of Uruba, as Faruqi understood, and we as his students understood, has no nationalistic component or a dimension to it. So Fazlur Rahman criticized Faruqi as being an Arabist. And this is a challenge because we have to overcome and understand Islam beyond Arabism. This Arabism, which started with Misha al-Aflaq and all that, and Kamal Abdel Nasser and all that. So Fazlur Rahman was stuck with Arab. He saw that Faruqi was promoting Arabism, which actually he was not. And about Ziauddin Sardar, as I said, there's total disagreement between Faruqi and Ziauddin Sardar. When Islamization of knowledge project started with Faruqi and, let's say, Naqib al-Attas, Sardar started another group with his friends, which was known as the Afkar group, from the UK. And they used to publish a magazine called Afkar, I believe. Yeah. And their approach was, as I said, which fits in the words of Faruqi, starting from the scratch. Now, Sardar is a very eloquent reader, eloquent speaker, and he is talking about integration of knowledge, which I don't agree. My views on that, because Sardar has a disagreement because they want to start from the scratch, and they are critical of Faruqi because Faruqi has a civilizational view that something is there, let's go further than that. There is environmental crisis, and that's what Nasser is also. Nasser is the first one to talk about the environmental crisis. Let us see how we as Muslims, as Khulafa, as Khalifa on earth, can contribute to addressing these challenges of ontology, of everyday existence, of poverty, of hunger, and all. So that is the difference between them. Sardar and his friends, I forget their names, Suhail Inayat and others who are in the UK, and Parvez, not Parvez Mansoor, another person who was with him, they want to start from the scratch. And they were very critical of Faruqi. But Faruqi took it in stride, and it's fine. We have differences of view, so it's fine as different approaches to how to address the crisis of education in the Muslim world, which actually has even become more acute now in our stage. So that's how I look at it. The question to...
Sorry, Brother has a question. Who's got his hand up? So if you can ask Brother Junaid, ask the Professor directly.
Yeah.
If you mute yourself and ask him.
I need to... Yeah, please go ahead, Junaid.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, Junaid, right? Are you Junaid?
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear
yes,
you.
Sir. Sir, actually, I'm from Kashmir. Yes, sir. I'm from Kashmir. So, sir, actually, I'm pursuing my PhD. Sir, I have chosen a topic for this, that revivalism approaches of Sayyid Hussain Nasr and Ismail Raji Al-Faruqi. Sir, I have come to see a difference between these two, that Sayyid Hussain Nasr is not much a big fan of this term Islamization. So, sir, can I say that Sayyid Hussain Nasr has many differences
Yes,
with this term Islamization of knowledge, because he is also, sir, he also talks about that the project of revivalism, but his revivalism approach is very different because he is from that perennialist thought, and Sayyid Hussain and Ismail Raji Al-Faruqi, he has that Tawhidic stance. So can I do that study? Because I have to do my PhD for 3 or 4 years.
Actually, you answered your question very well yourself. Sayyid Hussain Nasr is a perennialist, and Faruqi is not a perennialist. And Faruqi is a Tawhidic approach, epistemological approach to knowledge. And Nasr is in the school of Henry Korban and Kumaraswamy and several others. So he's a perennialist, and he is not in the Islamization of knowledge project. He never was a part of the Islamization of knowledge project. Yes, you can do that. That would be very interesting. There is a work on John Hick and Nasr, but that has got to do with something else. But that would be very interesting to look at this difference between Faruqi and Nasr. Another thing is in Nasr, in Faruqi you don't see nationalism, but in Nasr you have the Persian nationalism. He talks about their Persian heritage. The Persians have this view of looking down on the Arabs, the Arab cultural civilization. And so Nasr has this kind of feeling, high up there, and that also that perennialist view and Persianism. And if you read further, if you read Marshall Hodgson, and you can see that for Nasr, the 14th century, when Nasr uses the term tradition, going back to the tradition, he never mentions Quran and Hadith or Quran and Sunnah. You have never seen, you look all his works, he talks about traditionalism, but what tradition? He is talking about perennialist tradition, not the tradition of, I'm being very frank, of Tawheed. he is very much engaged with the Ishraqi school, Mullah Sadra. Actually, if you want to even look, Mullah Sadra's view of Fazlur Rahman and Nasser on Mullah Sadr are also very, very different. So he sees Islam from perennialism and 14th century onward Safavid dynasty Shiism. So these are what are the clues I can share with you, Brother Junaid.
Just due to time, unfortunately, I mean, there's one more question if Professor Imtiyaz want to take it.
Yeah.
We don't want to make it. This is interesting discussion, but just due to time. So there's a few more questions. If you just take it, then we end it here.
Yeah, I'll take the two questions which are here. Is can you explain Louis Lamia's contribution in writing the Cultural Atlas of Islam? It is very interesting. They were a couple who were intellectual companions, and their view of Islam and art shares many common features. If you look at the work on these on stylization, on denaturalization in the field of painting and music, there is a whole bibliography of the works of Louis Lamia Al-Faruqi and her contribution in the field of music and art and paintings and all. I can share that with you if you write to me at my IIUM email address of her contribution. And they both together developed the Islamic understanding of Islamic aesthetics in the modern age. The last question is, what is the difference between Islamization of knowledge and integration of knowledge? Now, I'm going to be very frank on this one. See, after Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi died or passed away, let me say something before, and Brother Fai could agree with me, that when Professor Faruqi was there, and we used to have meetings, we engaged in seminars at IIIT in the United States at that time, when he would speak, everybody else would be quiet, because he was an intellectual giant. He was an encyclopedic person. You know, the death of Faruqi created a vacuum. And this vacuum, I'm being very, very frank here, made IIIT go in different directions. It went under Taha Jabir al-Alwani, it went into the field of Sharia. Then it went, after 9/11, it went into talking about Maqasid al-Sharia. Now, IIIT has, this is very personal. I'm being personal here. They have abandoned the field of the Islamization of knowledge. Now they are in the field of education. In fact, they have changed the name of the journal, of the American Journal of Islamic Social Sciences, which was founded by Al-Faruqi, to American Journal of Islam and Society. So IIIT is gone has gone in different direction and in different ways. And I feel that Islamization of knowledge is not there, not talked about. Though some of people of IIIT would say that, oh, we are just changing the terms integration, which actually means Islamization. But no, integration of knowledge is the term used by Ziauddin Sardar. Maybe, you know, I'm a Faruqian, so my views will be are very solid on that. So, but the reality is that the death of Faruqi was the death of intellectual vision, broad vision towards approach to knowledge, which has left a vacuum in IIIT. There are several IIIT people here. Hope they don't take me to task on this one later on, but it's okay. It's an intellectual discussion. I think I should stop here. Yeah.
Professor Imtiyaz, your contribution, your time is much appreciated, and I'm glad that we could have the discussion and you know enjoy the life and this glimpse into the life and work of Ismail Raji Al-Faruqi. I have some of his work. I can't claim to have read everything, but I have some of his work, and Alhamdulillah, it's something that I benefited. There are areas where one may differ, but nevertheless, it is a contribution, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to to give him higher place in Jannah. And unfortunately, this is the end of this program. As much as it is interesting, but time is always against us. I'd like to thank everyone here for attending, taking their valuable time and joining ILS. So Jazakumullah, we got a few more program coming in next week. We got the life and work of Malik bin Nabi, the Algerian philosopher thinker. Then we got Dr. Imam Azami, and we got Isra Ahmed, the thinker from Pakistan. So inshallah, join us on our forthcoming program. Keep in touch, and Jazakumullah, and keep well and safe.
Thank you very much.